Hi, my name's Steve Stringer. I work for Centiq, where I work in the engineering department, where I specialise in pre-sales, post-sales and implementation of SAP HANA solutions. I'm going to talk about how to make an amazing infrastructure for HANA. Now, an amazing infrastructure is always going to start with design. At Centiq, we talk to our customers, we gather all the technical and business requirements of a system in order to create a design. And once we've got our design, it's very easy nowadays to translate as much of that design as possible into code. We start with the infrastructure. We define the infrastructure as code, and what that allows us to do is to create the infrastructure on a number of different hypervisors and cloud platforms. The advantage of doing this as code is that we get automatic, consistent and repeatable results. We can create an entire infrastructure within seconds, which is something that if you try and do that manually can take hours and hours and hours, and you're not going to get that repeatability. But once we've created our virtual infrastructure, we need to provision an operating system onto that. Again, we define the operating system configuration in code, and that means that we can again deploy that very quickly, but more importantly, in a repeatable and consistent manner. Once our operating system's on there, we move on to the configuration management, which is also defined as code. With configuration management, we can specify and define everything about the system. We can provision services, we can configure services, configure applications, and configure things like Linux tuning parameters consistently across the landscape. And at this point, we're ready to install SAP HANA, which again, of course, is automated. And we can roll out our SAP HANA databases in as a consistent way as possible, which is again all consistent, repeatable and automatic. So we've got our infrastructure, we've got our operating system, and we've got our SAP HANA in our landscape. What do we need next? What's going to make this an amazing landscape? Well, we need to define and configure tests to run across the landscape. Our tests do numerous things. We can check everything that we've configured to make sure it's consistent. We can ensure that all our tuning parameters are still in check. We can check information within the SAP HANA database itself. And crucially, we can check the performance. We can make sure the system's hitting its KPIs. Now, if any of our tests return negative results, we could also automate other actions. So for example, say a DNS server is not configured correctly, we can run code in order to put that configuration back the way it was. We can roll it back. So this is great. Everything's automated, everything's consistent and reliable, but what does it really mean? What advantages does it give us in the real world? Well, one easy thing to look at is testing a new HANA database version. Now, SAP HANA database upgrades, they're always disruptive. The database needs to come down and it needs to go back up again. So in a traditional way of thinking with static infrastructure, what you might do is just upgrade one of your dev systems. You know, that's the least important, right? Well, upgrading a dev system means developers can't work. In this sort of environment, we can quickly make a brand new dev system. It's going to be consistent with the rest of the landscape because it's going to be configured in the same way. And we can even automate the restoration of the most recent dev backup. We can then allow our tests to run to make sure the system's stable, and then perform the upgrade of the database system itself. Now, if that's problematic, if it doesn't work, or if there's errors that are found, we can simply work on it in isolation or just throw it away and wait for another fix to be released. However, if it is good, we can then start the schedule of the automatic update through the landscape. Now, we're always going to have a little bit of downtime in the lower regions in Dev and QA, but if we've got clustering and HA up at pre-prod and the prod layers, we can automate that and automate the failover as well, which means that the customer's going to experience seconds of downtime rather than hours. This is just the tip of the iceberg that we can do with automation. And if you want to learn more, you can visit our website. Thank you.